50 years ago, when I was about 7 years old, I used to come to this place here. This is Green Lake in Seattle, Washington, where I grew up. And I used to come on this dock that I'm walking on right now. In fact, I'm going to back walk on it. And this is where I learned how to fish as a young boy. I remember casting my line out off of this dock into Green Lake. So I think I was about maybe 7, because I was like in first grade or second grade, if those ages are right. And I could never catch a fish. And I remember asking the guy next to me, who seemed to be catching fish after fish after fish, what was he doing that I wasn't doing? And he said, I didn't have any patience. And that reminds me, I was reminded of that story this morning when I got a phone call from Joshua. Some of you who watch our YouTube channel at Prison Professors may know that I interviewed Joshua last week, and he was the fellow that had done many years in state prisons, and he had just gotten released from a maximum security prison. And he was telling me how he had access to the courses we create at Prison Professors on these tablets known as Adovo tablets, and how it really transformed his life. And he was just like blowing my phone up every day trying to get my attention. And after about a month, he's been out of prison now for about a month, I called him back. I called him and we had that long conversation in that video, and I would encourage you to hit the video. I'll put a link to it in the description below. But after talking with him, it turned out he had some skills as a builder, and I gave him a task. I suggested that he create a business plan, and if he created a business plan and sent it to me on how he could start a business in real estate, I told him I would help him raise the capital. Well, today he sent me the business plan, and then he called me and asked me what I thought about it. And if you watch the rest of this video, you're going to see what I thought about it. If you're new to the Prison Professors program, you may not know that one of the things that we do every single day is create content to teach and inspire people in jails and prisons across America. Last week, I received a series of text messages and email messages and even a phone call from Joshua Lease, a man who served a decade in a maximum security prison. In fact, it was a super maximum security prison. Here's the beginning of that video that you can see right here if you visit our website at Prison Professors, Maximum Security to Success. Just listen to about 30 seconds of it.
Tell me about what was on your mind.
Well, they moved me to a very good facility where they had the Adovo tablet system through Sailor College or something, and they actually gave us the ability to access videos, content that they approved, but I absorbed it all like a sponge. I've never been to a prison where they had that, so it was glass of fresh water.
And that message that Joshua gave led to a 1-hour conversation or a 50-minute conversation. The link to the video is going to be right below. But at the end of the video, we started talking about what he was doing with his life. And he told me that he was working in the construction industry. He had trained to be a contractor while he was in prison. And he was hoping to look for some guidance. And that at the end of the video, you'll hear me asking him questions about where he resides. And he told me he resided in Detroit. And I asked him questions about the real estate market in Detroit. Joshua told me that people could buy homes there for $5,000, $6,000, $10,000. And I asked him how much it would cost to remodel those homes and get them ready for occupancy as a rental unit. And he estimated that it would be anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 in costs and for materials and labors to make that project successful. So I gave him a challenge. I said, Joshua, if that's accurate, you could build a great business model around that. Why don't you draw it up? If you've really gone through my courses, why don't you draw it up and send me a business plan? And today, this morning, I got in my email Joshua's business plan. And when I was running earlier this morning at Green Lake, he gave me a call and asked me what I thought about his business plan. Well, I'm going to show it to you. So I'm going to remove this screen here and pull up the message that I received from him. And this is what he wrote me. So you can see here, the goal of purchasing a home to rehab and utilize as a rental is the first stepping stone into my 5-year plan to successfully reintegrate myself into society after spending almost a decade incarcerated, and to obtain my first $1 million of assets. I believe that the best way to go about this is to start with 1 to 3 houses to take the first step in my plan to start generating income, as well as create equity that can be used to continue the process of acquiring real estate, fixing up homes in the Detroit community, and establishing stepping stones to apply the revenue I generate to pursue other business ventures to continue down the path of creating my empire. After doing some research into the real estate market in Detroit, as well as the surrounding area, and based on houses that are available at this time, I chose properties in the market that I feel make the most sense in meeting the goals I have set for myself on this journey. I came across a lot of these 3 homes being sold in Detroit. Each home is $2,500, the lot total being $7,500. The first home is a 1,067 square foot 3-bedroom home. It has 1 bathroom. The approximate budget I believe is feasible for this home is $35,000 to $50,000 in supplies and $10,000 to $20,000 in labor, with a turnaround time of 8 to 12 weeks. Wow. So that's quite a difference from what he told me during my interview last week. The second home in the lot is a 1935 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bedroom home. The approximate budget for this property is $50,000 to $75,000, with a labor budget of $15,000 to $25,000 and turnaround time of 8 to 12 weeks. The final home in the lot is a 1,100 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home, and the budget for this home is $35,000 to $50,000 in supplies, with $10,000 to $20,000 in labor, with a turnaround time of 8 to 12 weeks. The projected rent of these homes once completed are $1,100 roughly a month. The all-in investment for this project would be $162,000 to $247,000 after the 8 to 12 week rehab process. 3 properties would start generating $3,300 per month. It would only take 48 to 74 months to recoup the initial investment, not to mention that there is now at least $300,000 in equity between the 3 homes. I also found a 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath home in Highland Park. The listing price for this house is $22,000. The approximate budget for this property would be $32,000 to $52,000 for supplies and labor of $18,000 to $20,000, with a projected rehab time of 12 to 16 weeks. The total investment comes to $62,000 to $94,000. The projected rent is $1,000, so it would take 62 to 94 months to recoup the investment on this property, but the home's value would potentially be $150,000. The final property that I came across is a 1,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath home in Detroit. The listing price on this property is $15,000. The budget for this property would be $28,000 to $45,000 for supplies and $7,000 to $18,000 in labor, with a rehab time of 12 to 16 weeks. The total investment cost for this project is $50,000 to $78,000. The projected rent for this property is $900. This means it would take 55 to 86 months to recoup the investment, with a rental property valued at approximately $120,000. Please see the home information tab to see information on the homes, as well as the links to the real estate properties. And so then, besides being kind of shocked at the business plan that he sent me, I looked at his properties here, and he gave me the addresses with links to the addresses, and I opened those links in a Chrome tab. So let's go ahead and open the Chrome, and we're going to see, where's the Chrome? I can't see it. We're going to see what these tabs look like. And these are the properties. So you can see they're pretty beat up, right? You can see there's a lot of work that has to be done on these properties. And I can see why it will take several $1,000s, tens of thousands of dollars to basically gut these properties and build from scratch. You can see it on here. This is the one that's going for $22,000 that he found, I guess. And we can look at that and say, well, what's that going to cost to remodel and get ready for tenant occupancy? Okay. You can see this one here, complete shambles, probably uninhabitable, but certainly an asset that might have some value if you can rehab it and get it ready for occupancy. The question is, who's going to do all of this work? And who is going to oversee the management of all of this work? And that, when I asked Joshua about that, he seemed to be a little bit lost. So while I was running around the Green Lake track, I had a rather extensive conversation with him and told him, you're making an assumption here. And that assumption
is premised on the thought that anybody really cares about Joshua or anybody else that gets out of prison. I would recommend that anybody who's going to come out of prison and start building a business or recalibrating his life needs to forget about himself and to think instead about the potential partners that he can create. That strategy can open opportunities for a much brighter future. But when Joshua is providing a business plan that's suggesting he's going to need anywhere from 160 to $250,000, I think he's really looking for a fantasy. He may as well be asking for $50 million. There's not an investor on the planet that, well, I mean, an investor that doesn't have a relationship or a vested interest in his success that would ever provide that kind of capital unless he can provide a premise on what the investor is going to get in return. In this model that Joshua recommended, the only thing he wrote about was what he's going to get. He needs to be, instead of thinking about himself, it's wise to be thinking about the people that he's going to meet in the future and figure out what can I do to satisfy that person's needs. If he starts from that premise, the individual will succeed in being able to maybe not only start with one project, but scale that project. And I suggested that he starts by thinking about who that prospective investor might be. That prospective investor may have capital, but what he doesn't have is time. And if he's going to invest resources to build something, he's going to want to make sure that the person he's investing the resources in has the capability to carry it out. When I was asking Joshua about his plans on how he would execute on this model, there were too many unknowns. There was too much, I don't know. Well, it depends. No investor wants to hear that. An investor wants to have certainty. And that investor especially wants to know that the person requesting the capital has the capacity to carry it out. So we started walking through, as I was running around the track, some questions that might help him build that story. And while I was asking him those questions, I learned that he had served not only did he serve 10 years in prison, but he had earned a series of certificates that gave him the credentials he needed, according to him, that would indicate he could carry a project from startup to completion. And I asked him, well, what's the most amount of money you've ever had in the bank? And he said $10,000. And I said to Joshua, when did you have $10,000? Was that a long time before you got in? He said, no, just about a month ago when I got out of prison. And I said, well, how did you earn $10,000 while you were in prison? He said, I just saved all of my money. I said, that's what you want to tell an investor. That's one of the reasons that you might be a worthy candidate for an investment. If you managed your time in prison so well that you came out after 10 years with $10,000 in the bank, that's an indication of your level of responsibility. You might also want to tell an investor how you plan to execute on this model. And you could tell him, well, I'm living in a motel right now for $260 a week. That's more than $1,000 a month. If you can find an investor who will buy the asset, you could tell the investor it's going to cost you, say, $7,500 to buy 3 properties. That's $2,500 a piece. And if you're genuinely able to acquire materials at around $25,000 to refurbish it, now you're into each property. $25,000 plus $2,500 is only $27,500. I asked him how long it would take him to remodel the properties, and he told me it would take about 5 weeks. When I asked Joshua how much he earns a week, he told me about $800. I asked him how many people would it take you to be on the job to finish the project. He said about 2. I said, great, well, you should budget yourself $1,000 a week for each man. That's $2,000 a week times 5. That gives you a $10,000 budget for labor. So now you're in the property for $35,000 plus, $2,500 for the cost of the asset, $25,000 in materials, $10,000 in labor, which is a total of $37,500 per house. And I said, if you could buy the asset for $37,500, you could then tell the person, that the investor, if I get it complete in 5 weeks, I want to get a $2,500 bonus, which now the investor's all in on the property for $40,000. If he's all in on the property for $40,000, I told Joshua, you could say you'll move into the property and guarantee him $1,000 a month rent. You're already paying that. You could bring two more tenants in there with you who would pay you $500 each to live in your property, and that would completely cover your rent. But what the real winner is for you, Joshua, is if you can negotiate this with an investor and say that the total price of the first asset is only $40,000. If I bring it to completion, then I want you to put up the money for the other two, and we'll do it 3 times. And at the end of this, Joshua, I would say you would want to negotiate a 5-year plan with the investor and say, I want to rent it from you for $1,000 a month. And of the $1,000 a month, ask the investor to say, put up, say, 30% of that in sweat equity that would go toward your purchase of the property. And you might negotiate with the investor that said, after 5 years, you will have recovered, that's 60 months, you will have recovered $60,000 in cash. And you could tell the investor that if you do that, I want you to apply $300 a month towards my purchase of the asset. And that would mean that you would have already acquired $300 times 60 months. That's $18,000 that goes towards the purchase of that asset. And you might tell the investor that said, if I fulfill this obligation for you, I want you to sell me the asset for, say, $70,000. But I want you to take $18,000 off as my down payment, which means I only owe you $52,000 more. So the investor would have recovered all of his money that he put into the property, and he could now sell it to you, and you would now have an asset that's performing. If you could genuinely do one property in about 2 months' time, it would seem like you should pretty easily be able to do 4 to 5 properties a year. And this is a project that you could scale. And over 5 years, you would have an interest in, if you were able to do 5 a year, in 5 years, you'd have 25 properties that are generating $1,000 a month that you would be able to acquire for about another $50,000 to $60,000 each, and your investor might even finance you on those properties. So it's a win for you, it's a win for the investor, it's a win for the tenants, and it's a win for the community. That's how you have to think about raising capital when you've come out of prison. Don't think about what you need. Think about what the investors who are going to believe in you will need. And that's the way you can scale and grow and build a career. And if you're going to talk about acquiring millions of dollars in assets, I told Joshua, you've got to think about, well, what about the people that are taking the risk and providing the capital? What are they going to get in return? Answer those questions first, and you will be following the guidance that we learned from Zig Ziglar, who said, if you can help enough people get what they want, you can get everything you want. And if you document this entire story and build a case study, you can replicate it in city after city after city. But you've got to get the first one going. And that's what I suggested that Joshua start with today. So we're going to use this course as just some examples of some of the reasons why we want people to be developing their vocabulary, developing their critical thinking skills, developing their writing skills, developing their math skills, so that they can articulate a business model this way and present it to other people. And that way a person doesn't have to be hidden from his prison experience. Instead, he can use his prison experience, as I suggested that Joshua does, as a strength. He wants to begin by thinking about, well, what are the people that I can collaborate with or joint venture with or partner with? What do they need? And during our walk today, we spoke about professionals, business leaders, physicians, engineers, people who earn a really high income But what is their strength and what is their weakness? Their strength is that they probably have a lot of cash. They all have a lot of money in savings. Their weakness is they don't have any place to put those savings, because if they just leave it in the bank, it only generates 1% a year. But if they apply them to projects like this that are in, resolving some of the problems of social injustice, but also providing housing for the community and improving the community, but also getting a return on their money and helping a formerly incarcerated person, that's like a victory on many different fronts. And there's not risk really involved, because the investor is going to own the asset that he's investing. He can buy the house. He might use his credit card to fund the purchase of the materials at Home Depot. And then he's going to count on somebody like Joshua to manage the property. And he's going to get a far higher return on his investment than he would if he kept the money in the bank. It's not liquid. The guy can't convert it to cash so quickly. And it's certainly a long-term project. But there are a lot of people I have found that want to invest in people who have taken the time to invest in themselves. And if you're watching this inside of a jail or prison, it's my hope that you are going to start by investing in yourself before you ask somebody else to invest in you. Nobody should work harder for your success than you're willing to work. And if you go through our courses at Prison Professors, you're going to learn that we never ask anybody to do anything that we didn't do. We're always focusing on building best possible outcomes, but we're doing the same level of contribution ourselves. That's what we want from you. If you're watching this outside, we hope that you will subscribe to our program, and that you can do that just by pressing the button. And I want to think it's there or there, not quite sure. But I do hope that you will use this method to help us help other people. So if you're watching it outside, please subscribe to the Prison Professors YouTube channel. If you're watching this inside of a jail or a prison, we do hope that you're finding value in it and you're continuing to work through all of our courses that we create to teach and inspire people in jail and prison. My name is Michael Santos, and on behalf of our entire team, we want to let you know that we believe in you and we thank you for being a part of the Prison Professors community. Thanks.